Thank you. I think we have a full house here. We have approximately 75 students or so connecting from the Guru Ayyappan Temple of Brampton. Plus, we have a lot of people connecting on behalf of Kerala Hindus of North America, KHNA as well. So, welcome. This is Shaji Krishnan, and the topic today is Vedanta for Beginners Part 1. There are two parts, Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 is happening right now, and Part 2 will happen next Friday, same time. So before we start this one, there's a couple of two small housekeeping rules. Please make sure that your phones are on mute. If you are on Zoom, take a minute, familiarize yourself, and put your phone or your iPad, notepad, or laptop on mute, please. Last time, few people didn't do it, so the whole recording, when we were recording it, all we could hear was the clanking of the vessels which she was cleaning in the sink and all. So let's avoid those kind of things. So please put your phone on mute. And the second housekeeping rule, this particular topic is approximately 50 minutes to 55 minutes long. And after that, it will be followed by a short question and answer session. If the answer is known to me, I will share it with you, or if not, I have my Shikshak here, Sri Devi ji, who will pitch in and help me if I encounter tough questions. So before we start, let's start with the Mangala Charana, or the Advaita Parampara Guru Vandanam as we call it. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. The meaning of this is beginning with Lord Sadashiva, through Adi Shankaracharya in between, and up to my own Guru, I bow with reverence to the entire lineage. Our Advaita Guru Parampara begins with the Daiva Parampara, hence Lord Sadashiva, and it follows with the Rishi Parampara, Shankara Bhagavad Pada. So we have a body of knowledge coming down from generation to next through a beautiful unbroken lineage. So a lot of people may be thinking, why this talk? How did this happen? I was enrolled in Sri Devi ji's Gita Shastra class, and why is this happening? So the answer is as follows. Guru Ayyappan Temple of Brampton in Canada, which we shortly call as GTOB, is situated in the outskirts of Toronto, Canada. And the temple started 3 30-minute Bhagavad Gita Shloka teleconference chanting groups in the month of August last year. All 3 groups are packed, it's well received, and we are into our 6th month run. While learning how to chant Gita shlokas, few people in the Gita chanting group express interest to learn Bhagavad Gita Shastra in detail, going through each shloka, analyzing the purport, the relevance, and comparing it with the commentaries and the bhashyams that's available, and having a small group discussion format in a satsang style so that we all can share our knowledge and gain as one unit team. So we felt it was a very unique opportunity for all of us to study this exceptional scientific and management treatise, which is of utmost importance in this day and age. So we approach our Shikshak, Sri Devi ji. She has lots of years of experience running similar groups, and she agreed to start one for the Guru Ayyappan Temple of Brampton. So we posted this information and we got an overwhelming response. 75 people signed up within a few weeks for this teleconference class. So once again, welcome to you all. So, from various sources, we have heard that Bhagavad Gita is the gist of Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita harmonizes and presents the contents of all the Upanishads in a beautiful thematic format. So once we start looking into the 700 plus shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, and we started counting, we see approximately 300 plus Upanishadic terminologies coming in Bhagavad Gita. So, to understand Gita better, our Shikshak thought that if we conduct a Vedanta for beginners class, it will help the students to refresh their knowledge, remind them of the basics of Vedanta, and make them all well equipped for the upcoming Gita class. So when this opportunity popped up and when Sridevi ji was talking about it, I volunteered myself. I volunteered with the hope that I will get a chance to brush up on my own basics. So here I am, and that's the background story in a nutshell. Because not many people don't know what really happened behind the screens, so I just thought maybe I'll explain it to you. So today we are having the part 1 of Vedanta for beginner session. Part 2, as I mentioned, is scheduled next week, same day, same time. My speech borrows heavily from the Advaita school of thought, especially books, articles, research publications, and countless videos and audios and podcasts of Swami Chinmayananda, Puja Gurudev, and his Chinmaya mission and his disciples. So, when you look at the Bhagavad Gita, and especially when you look at the Gita Dhyana Slokam, it states, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Duktam Gita Amritam Mahat. This beautiful sloka translates as, all the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is none other than Lord Krishna himself. Arjuna is a calf. Men of purified intellect are the drinkers, and the milk is the great nectar of Gita. So, the Vedanta is a very vast subject. Once you start looking at Vedanta, people, especially the learned people, the sages, have spent their lifetime and they've only scratched the surface. So these 2 sessions we're going to have this Friday and next Friday will only cover the bare basics. What we need for the Gita Shastra course that he is beginning on Feb 7th. So the material today, as you've heard, as you've read, as you familiarize yourself, can be dry at sometimes. It may be a little boring and it could put you to sleep on a Friday night, especially considering the fact that you are back here after a tiring day of work. So what I will try to do is I will try to keep it very simple, very informative. I'll try to add a lot of other information as well. I'll try to keep it a little bit fun and entertaining. So if you just recollect what all I said, there were a few words I was using like epics, Upanishads, and Vedanta. So for the people who are starting, who are the beginners, let's quickly refresh what these words mean. Sanatana-Dharma, or as the rest of the world call it, Hinduism, is an ancient religion of the world. And it has got tons and tons of religious books and scriptures. So when Swami Chinmayananda said, if you ask me to give a book on Hinduism, I will say, welcome to my library. So that exactly is Hinduism. We have countless books. It's just like a granthalayam. So these scriptures or the books are commonly divided, if you want to classify them, into 6 main categories. Shrutis, Smritis, Itihasa, Puranam, Agamas, and Darshanas. Since we are really running short of time, we will not be touching Smritis, Itihasam, Puranas, Agamas, and Darshanas, and instead we will look at only the first one right now, Shruti. So, Shruti, the Sanskrit word Shrut, basically means to hear. That which has been heard or revealed is called Shruti. What happened is in ancient times, when all the great sages were doing meditation, they were in tapasya or great sadhana. So these people whom we typically call them as rishis, but that's not exactly right. Because rishis, you had both the genders there. You have lots of rishis in Vedic times, and you had also female rishis whom we call as rishikas. So they both, what happened was they were in a deep sense of contemplation, and they were in an elevated sense of consciousness. When they were in that high plane of consciousness, divine truths were revealed to them. Or you could say that they were able to tap into the ocean of knowledge. So whatever that was revealed to them is presented in the Vedas. So Vedas are the oldest textbooks to humankind. The word Veda comes from the Sanskrit word Ved, to know. So these rishis and the rishikas are not the authors. They were just a medium. That is why the Vedic rishi is often referred to as a drishta, a seer, someone who's looking into far beyond. So that's one of the reasons Shrutis are always called as apaurisheya. That basically means it is not being created by a man. So these Shrutis were canonical. They were unquestionable truth because no man had created it. It was revealed to the sages, and it was eternal, it was timeless, it was beyond time, and it was error-free. So during this conversation or during this session, we'll be using a lot of Sanskrit words, and most of the Sanskrit words have got multiple meanings. You go beyond layer by layer, different meanings unfurl. To make our session very simple, what we are trying to do is we are trying to use the most appropriate meaning here. So originally, the Vedas were not in written format. For centuries, they were chanting it orally, and they were transmitting it orally to the successive generations. They were preserved by accurate verbal transmission in the Guru Sishya Parampara, and it was passed on from one generation to the next. So when the historians come now and they wanted to start dating the Veda, they find it very difficult to date it, because it's very difficult to go back in time and to prove it authentically. The reason is they were looking for palm leaf manuscripts or any Himalayan birch bark, which were also used back in olden times instead of palm leaf manuscripts and all the stuff. And they couldn't find any of these things because these are the communication that was handed down orally from one generation to other generation. Also, when you read some old books, Sanatana-Dharma books, you see Veda, and in some books you see Vedas.
Join the meeting.
So you have a singular and a plural word for Vedas. So that confuses some people. And the reason they always ask is, why are you using plural and singular? So it all heads back to a beautiful story of Veda Vyasa. So what happened was, Veda Vyasa was not his real name. It was Krishna Dvaipayana. He was the son born to Parashara Maharshi and Satyavati, who was also called as Matsya Gandhi. And when Veda Vyasa was born, it is said that Satyavati left him, and this kid was super genius. And when he grew up, Veda Vyasa started experiencing or anticipating problems with the oral tradition of the Vedas that was happening. And the memory retention problems associated with it, the risk associated with transmitting orally across generations, the information misinterpretations that could come, the discontinuities that could come in the hierarchical chain due to war, disease, death, natural calamities, etc. So what happened was, Vedavyasa sent all his disciples to various parts of the world, and he gathered all the Vedas, and what he did was he started compiling them, classifying them, and dividing them. And that's how he arranged the entire Vedas, and he separated them into 4 divisions: the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And what he also did, the story goes that he assigned it to a specific group of people to handle the transmission of the knowledge from generation to generation. I think someone has got has kept the phone still on, so I can hear some background noise. So could you please mute your phone, please? Could you please mute your phone? Rig Veda is a collection of hymns or mantras, as we call as Rig. Yajurveda Samhita consists of lots of prose mantras and is also divided into Shukla and Krishna. And Samaveda is a collection of Gana or songs. And Atharva Veda is just considered as a mix of it. So when we see these all four Vedas, the classified group four Vedas, the first three Vedas were grouped as Trayi Vidya, or the triple science of reciting hymns, Rig Veda, performing sacrifices, Yajurveda, and the chanting of songs, Samaveda. And a lot of researchers say that the Vedas, what we have right now, we are missing a lot, and we have lost a lot of them too. And each Veda, be it the Rig Veda, Yajur, Sama, or Atharva, can be subgrouped as well using the acronym SBAU. S stands for Samhitas, B for Brahmanas, A for Aranyakas, and U stands for Upanishads, SBAU. So Samhitas are the invocation mantras. These are the prayers, the benedictions that happens. Brahmanas are the commentaries and the explanations on the rituals, the ceremonies, and the sacrifices associated to get a particular desired results. So Samhitas and Brahmanas are the learning type. These are the things where you put your mind into it, you learn about it. And that is why these two parts, the Samhitas and Brahmanas, are often called as the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. They are apparently concerned with the ceremonial rites and rituals. Then comes Aranyakas and Upanishads. Aranyakam in Sanskrit means forest. So Aranyakas deals with the knowledge and the contemplation techniques, because in Samhitas and the Brahmanas you have already learned the knowledge. So what happens is like a forest. Just imagine a forest. It is an ideal location. It is a quiet location far, far away from the worldly distractions, to perfect what has been learned into practice using meditation and contemplation. So a transition started to happen once you learned everything. So there was a small transition happening from learning was slowly you're trying to practice it. From action, you're slowly moving into knowledge. And when this stuff happening, there was a lot of similarities one could realize in the macrocosmic, the world outside, and the microcosm, the inner self. And from the gross to the subtle. So the people were able to link the universe with the self. They could see similarities. They could understand the finer concepts. They could stay there and do contemplation for hours. And that yielded Upanishads. So that's a text discussing meditation, philosophy, and spiritual knowledge. So once you look at that particular aspect, you will see a beautiful natural progression. The last two, Aranyakas and Upanishads, are also called as the Jnana Kandam of the Vedas because they explicitly focus on philosophy and spiritualism. So one of the meanings for the Upanishads, the SBAU, the last part is Upanishads, is to sit near or close to a guru with an objective to acquire knowledge. So the guru sits in the pidam and the student sits on the floor down, and it's just like the information flows from the guru to the sishya. It is very similar to water flowing from a higher source to a lower source. And the Upanishads presents the cream of the Veda. It's a creme de la creme there. The Upanishads are the concluding or the end portions of the Vedas, and so they were also called as Vedanta. The word Vedanta is a compound word, and if you split it, it splits into Veda and Anta. Anta means end. So Upanishads and Vedanta can be treated very synonymous. So Vedanta was very difficult for a normal person to analyze or understand or comprehend. So lots of commentaries, so that we call it as bhashyams, were written. So a lot of scholars say that we have approximately 200 Upanishads. And if you look at the 200 Upanishads, some of the historians may say, oh, we had more than 200 because it makes reference to a lot of Upanishads, but some of them are totally missing. In some cases, we have only few stanzas of Upanishads or few lines of Upanishads. So when you look at all the Upanishads in its entirety, you have 200 of them. And out of 200 of them, 108 or something like that, you have excellent commentaries. And a lot of schools of thoughts or philosophical schools, what they did was they picked 18 Upanishads as the required mandatory learning for their disciples or students. And Shankara Bhagavad-pada, he lived only to the age of 32, and he had an opportunity only to write bhashyams for the 10 Upanishads. So whenever you read an Upanishad, whenever you encounter the words 200, 108, 18, or 10, this is what it basically means too. So it can all be condensed or percolated to simple wordings like that. So the Vedanta, which is also known as Upanishad, it pronounces the ultimate truth. So the Vedanta reveals to us that the God, whom we call it as a Purusha, is imperishable, and the nature of the world that's around us is the Prakriti, that is perishable. You have an imperishable God and a perishable world, and there is an essential oneness that's between the God and the beings from the physical self. And it reiterates to us multiple times that we are without limitations and our potential is limitless. And the reason we don't know this is because of the ignorance of this truth and the misconceptions we have of the world and the God. So what happens is when we study Vedanta, all these problems, it says all these problems will be solved, or we will try to look at these issues as non-problems. So when a problem ceases to be a problem, you don't have to strive for an answer. So the other word is the Vedanta also tells us there's a lot of insecurity and unhappiness, and that basically comes from our self-ignorance. So the only way to remove self-ignorance is through self-knowledge, and Vedanta assists us in this venture. So that is why Vedanta is also called as Atmanyanam or Brahmanyanam in various texts. So again, these words can be used synonymously. So to make it in a much more simpler way, right? So imagine that you're standing in a bright sunny day on a outside. Suddenly the dark clouds comes and envelops the sun that's on top of your head, and it prevents you from seeing the sun. So for a minute, it looks to us like the sun has disappeared. But when the clouds slowly disperse, we realize that the sun has always been there. Those dark clouds were creating a barrier between us and the sun. Similarly, Maya appears as a barrier. So Maya gets manifested through egotism, selflessness, hatred, greed, lust, anger, ambition, and it blocks us from our true, real nature. So when we engage in unselfish action, in truthfulness, in purity, and in total contentment, it says it slowly drives the clouds of Maya away, and it allows our divine nature to shine forth like a bright sun. So one of the disciples of Shankaracharya asked Shankaracharya a simple question. If a person's soul is really one with God, why is a person feeling so separate from God? So Shankaracharya smiled at the disciple and said, all you need is to remove the obstruction called Maya, because Maya is the culprit. And that's one of the reasons we hear the sloka, Ajnananda Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. Knowledge opens the eyes blinded by cataract, which is a veil of ignorance. The beauty of the human beings is that we all have the sixth sense. This sixth sense is called Viveka in Sanskrit, and it basically means the sense of right judgment, the sense of right understanding and discernment. So the aim of Vedanta is to remove the impure self which covers the Maya, allowing us to see the true self, the Satchitanandam, which translates in English as existence, consciousness, and bliss, which we all are. And that is why you often hear this Vedantic quote: don't settle for being human. Don't settle for being human. Discover the God that you really are. Discover the God that you really are. In the Kurukshetra battlefield, Arjuna develops same serious doubts and seeks the knowledge from his confidant and his friend Krishna. What Krishna preaches is pure Vedanta. That is the reason Lord Krishna begins his teaching to Arjuna with a statement that grief is unwarranted. And Bhagavad Gita beautifully proclaims the relationship between the Supreme Self and the individual, the Brahman and the Atman, between God and human. So, to summarize it, Gita is a highly condensed version of Upanishads. There is no difference between the teachings of the Gita and the Upanishads. And we all know the Sanskrit word for knowledge is jnanam. So the desire for knowledge is called jignasa. And the seeker of the knowledge is called jignasu. So we hear these kind of words coming again and again in Gita. So I'm just addressing those two words. And when you look at the sources of knowledge, jnanam, Vedanta says it can come from 4 different sources, broadly speaking. One is a paroksha jnanam. Paroksha jnanam basically means a knowledge coming from a higher source, which comes to a person during deep meditation or contemplation. Paroksham, the word itself can be split up, and you can say para, basically means beyond, and aksha, eye. That basically means beyond what eyes can normally see. And the second classification is aparoksham. That's not something far, but the knowledge that you are getting from your guru due to the guru-sishya sambandham. That's called aparoksham. Then there's something called apatata jnanam. So that is basically the jnanam or information or knowledge you gain from casually reading textbooks. And the last one is the pratyaksha. The pratyaksha knowledge is a knowledge that we gain from all the sensory organs. So that is the main 4 divisions of knowledge that you often see in Gita and Vedanta, which are very similar. And there is another word which we often use as well called prasthanatrayi. So you say Upanishads, Brahma Sutram, and Bhagavad Gita are referred as prasthanatrayi. Prasthanam basically means path, the simple English word meaning, and trayam or trayi is 3. Now you would say, hold on. You spoke about Upanishads, you spoke about Bhagavad Gita. Hey, what's this Brahma Sutra? So Brahma Sutra is nothing but a philosophical and the spiritual ideas of Vedanta. They were all condensed together. And since all the ideas from Vedanta were condensed, Brahma Sutra is sometimes referred to as Vedanta Sutra as well. And it is one of the fundamental textbooks in the Vedantic school of Hindu philosophy. So basically, Sutra, or the word, if you look into it, it is the same meaning that you find in Tamil or Sanskrit, the 2 ancient languages in India. A sutra is a brief statement in which so many ideas are packed. So the closest meaning for sutram in English is an aphorism. Aphorism basically means a concise statement explaining a principle. So a collection of aphorisms dealing with Brahman or the Brahmanyanam is called the Brahma Sutras. Atato Brahma Jignasa. That is how the first stanza of Brahma Sutra starts. Thereafter, therefore, desire for knowing Brahman. That's the meaning of it. And when you start looking at these Brahma Sutras, or especially these aphorisms, are very, very cryptic in nature. So without the commentaries, it is very difficult to understand. Even when a person reads the commentaries, they still can't make a head and tail out of it. And that is why you have interpretations on the commentaries available as well. So with interpretations, you understand the commentary. Then once you understand the commentary, you slowly migrate to Brahma Sutras. And it is said that the Brahma Sutras was authored by Badarayana. And it is widely believed that Badarayana was none other than Sri Vedavyasa. And just because he resided at an ashram in Badri Kshetram, he is also called by that name. So whatever be it, to summarize it, Upanishad is a revealed knowledge which comes from Veda, and the Vedas are called Shrutis. On the other hand, the other two Prasthana Trayi documents, the Brahma Sutram and the Bhagavad Gita, as we all know, comes from a part of Mahabharata, are part of the Smriti category, or the knowledge that's been remembered by humans. So the Sanatana-Dharma can be broadly said that it's based on the secured foundation of these three prasthanas or paths. Shruti Prasthana, you have the Upanishads, which are a part of Vedas. You have the Smriti Prasthana, that's the Bhagavad Gita. And then you have a Nyaya, or the logic Prasthana, where the Brahma Sutras come in. And you may wonder, why are we making references to Prasthana Trayi, and why are we knowing about these three documents? The reason is pretty simple. Imagine if there is any controversy that arises in a philosophical debate or a philosophical issue in Hinduism. The interpretation of the Prasthana Trayi, these three documents, is considered to be final and binding. So that is why we give importance to the Prasthana Trayi and these three documents. So coming back to the different philosophical schools in Sanatana-Dharma, there are three main schools of thoughts: Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. So all three have something in common. All three consider Veda as the supreme and its characteristic features, and all three agree on the cyclical nature of creation, and the universe was not created out of nothing, and it is only a projection of the periodic evolution and involution. So the universe self-creates and self-destroys itself, and the divine core that's in every being is that which all you are eternal. So when we talked about the Advaita, Advaita basically means Advaita, which is not dual, which is not two. It's only one single one. So that is the meaning of Advaita. And Shankaracharya was asked another question by one of another smart disciples as well. So he was asking, there are so many documents in Hinduism, and if you want to condense every document in Hinduism and summarize the entire Advaitic core philosophy in one single simple sentence, what would that be? So Shankaracharya came back immediately. He said, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So that basically means Brahman alone is real. The world that's around us is unreal. It's Maya. The Jiva, the individual soul, is none other than the Supreme Brahman. So the essence can be summarized very simple. We are not part, nor are we different from Brahman. We are the Brahman. We are the Brahman. That is the core philosophy, the essence. So when we look at the Brahman, you may think, what are the characteristics of a Brahman? Again, the Vedanta divides that into four categories. Nirguna, devoid of all qualities. Nirvikara, without any modifications. Nishkriya, free from all actions. And Nirvishesha, which cannot be characterized. And you may all wonder, right? If Brahman is the only reality, where did this world come from? Or we could also ask another question too. How did the one become many? So for that, Vedanta comes up with another beautiful saying, one of the golden statements in Vedanta. It says, when we see the one, the many does not exist. And when we deal with the many, the one is not perceived. I'll repeat it. When we see the one, the many does not exist. And when we deal with the many, the one is not perceived. It may sound a little perplexing, a little confusing, but Swami Chinmayananda comes up with a very beautiful example, and he just helps us to comprehend it immediately. He says, look at the ocean. You see a huge tide coming to you. You see a small wave coming to you. You see tiny droplets of waters being suspended in the air, remnants of a previous wave. You see small ripples on the other side of the ocean too. What happens to the big wave? The big wave slowly comes, dashes, and just merges back with the ocean. What happens to the small wave? The small wave also submerges slowly. What happens to the tiny tricklet of water droplet that was suspending? It just blends in with the ocean. What happened to this condensation? It percolates and falls down into the ocean. The world is related to Brahman as the same way the big wave, the small wave, the collection of droplets of the condensation are related to ocean. When they all merge with ocean, there's only one ocean. But when you get separated, it feels to us that we see 4 or 5 separate things or a multitude of separate things. But when it's all coming back, it's one and the same. So that is why Advaita claims that the world is the illusory projection of Brahman caused by Maya. It vanishes when the Maya is destroyed by true knowledge, just like a wave which merges back with the ocean. So when we look at this one, and especially when we look at any temples where the Murti Sthapana or the idol consecration is happening, you realize that the Supreme Brahman is being Avahanam, and they're trying to bring that energy, and they're bringing the energy of the Nirguna Brahman, and they're tagging it something called Bhaga. Bhaga asya asti iti Bhagavan. Bhaga means virtues, qualities, or attributes which are tagged or associated with Nirguna Brahman to make it into a Saguna Brahman or an Ishvara or an Ishta Devata, and which finally gets consecrated as an idol. So the Nirguna Brahman is brought to a state of Saguna Brahman or Ishta Devata or Ishvara, adding these qualities, or Bhaga as we call it in Sanskrit. So we are saying, what are the 6 qualities? The first one is Jnanam, knowledge. The second one is Vairagyam, dispassion. The third one is a Viryam, the ability to manifest, sustain, resolve. The fourth one is Yashas, fame. The fifth one is Shri, wealth. And the sixth one is the Aishwaryam, overlordship. So that is how the whole concept of Ishvara comes into here. Then when we start looking at Vedas, Vedas comes with lots of Vakyas or statements. And there are only 4 Mahavakyas too. These 4 Mahavakyas were picked from a group of Vakyas, and these 4 Mahavakyas are the special sentences that comes in Upanishads that reveal the nature of Jiva self and the Brahman. So let's look at what the 4 Mahavakyas are. The first one is Prajnanam Brahma. It basically means Brahman is consciousness. It comes from the Aitreya Upanishad in Rig Veda. The second one is Aham Brahmasmi. It means I am the Brahman. It comes from Brihadaranya Upanishad from Yajurveda. The third one is Tattvamasi, thou art thou. It comes from Chandogya Upanishad in Samaveda. And the last one is the I am Atma Brahma. This Atman is Brahman. It comes from the Mandukya Upanishad in Atharva Veda. In Guru Gita, these 4 Mahavakyas are interlinked and explained beautifully. Guru Gita is authored by Sri Vedavyas, and it describes a conversation between Lord Shiva and his wife Parvati. If you have seen the Hollywood movie, which was released maybe 15 years back, I think, the Eat, Pray, Love, one starring Julia Roberts, they make a few references to this Guru Gita and the text or the gist of the material too. So when we look at these ones, right, all the four Mahavakyas, and let's see how it makes sense, how they are all interconnected. The first one is called Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness, is an Upadesha Vakya or a statement of instruction. A statement of instruction or Upadesha Vakya can be, it can be synonymously or something close, we can say is a vision statement of a company, a high level motherhood statement. Then comes Tattvamasi, the second Mahavakya, that thou art. You are God. This is the Adesha Vakya or the command statement. And it gives a distinct guideline on how to locate God in a commanding stuff, right? So you have the Upadesha Vakya, an instruction, and you have an Adesha Vakya command. So let's analyze it. So imagine if I'm walking to a new workplace and starting the job for the first time. When somebody comes and gives me a high-level vision statement, which is called an Upadesha Vakya, and an Adesha Vakya command, I will be totally confused. I would ask, hey, what's my roles and responsibilities? What do you expect me to do with these high-level wordings, right? Because there is no roadmap, there is no plan, there is no guidelines, there is no procedures for me to follow to do my job. So the student gets confused, and that's where the third Mahavakya comes into picture and it clears the whole doubt. It's called the Atman is Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. So I am Atma Brahma comes from the Mandukya Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishad, and it is referred to as Abhyasa Vakya or the statement of practice. So through consistent application or Abhyas, the student slowly attains realization in course of time. Then he finally says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. So that Aham Brahmasmi or I am the Brahman, which comes from Brihadaranya Upanishad in Yajurveda, is a declaration of experience. So that is why Vedanta calls it Anubhava Vakya. So now we will look at all these four things and the way the four things, all the four Mahavakyas are beautifully interconnected by Veda Vyasa in his book Guru Gita. It gives us some sort of a broader understanding of the whole scope. And our scriptures state that the human birth is not very easy to achieve. It took billions of years for us to reach here from a unicellular organism. Ahara nidra bayamaitunam cha samanyametat pashubir naranam. That's a beautiful shloka which translates animals and men share activities of eating, sleeping, mating, procreating and defending. But the special property we human beings possess is the ability to engage in spiritual life with the aim of achieving Brahmajanam, which the animals don't. So the human beings have a rare capacity called free will and a highly developed sense which other creatures lack, the power of discrimination called vivekam. So we try to survive in this world, taking more than what we need to quench our thirst and hunger. The survival instinct within us, the humans, is so high that we try all the tricks in our sleeves to avoid dangers and diseases and death. And during the survival process, we gravitate towards pleasure, and every occasion that gets unfurled in front of us, we try to grab it to our advantage. We are no different from the rest of the animals. So that is why Vedanta says, if you don't use this God-given opportunity, there is no difference between humans and animals. So to emphasize this point, recommendations on how to lead a good and an upright life was formulated by the great rishis of ancient India. These four goals, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, are called Purusharthas. Purusharthas means human goals or what everyone pursues. Sarvai Purushai Arthate. That which gives you any kind of security among the Purusharthas, emotional, economical, or social, is called Artha in Vedanta. It could be money, it could be assets, it could be relationships, home, name, recognition, status, etc., etc. Anything that satisfies our senses, that pleases our mind, that touches our heart, that tingles our feeling, evokes a certain appreciation or a good feeling, and creates a spark within us, is called kama. Humans pursue artha and kama, and our life becomes an endless struggle for attaining this constant security and happiness. And this never ending state of activity of artha and kama arising out of a sense of want is called samsara. The person in samsara who runs like a hamster in a wheel, round and round and round and round, is called a samsari. And among these two Purusharthas we looked, let's look at the third one. The third one is called Dharma. And the beauty of Dharma is there is no English meaning. Dharyate anena iti dharmaha. It says in Sanskrit. So how do we find an equivalent meaning in English? The equivalent meaning reads something like this. That which supports, maintains, nourishes, harmonizes, unifies the inert and the sentient, the individual and the society, the nation and the world is Dharma. The very substratum of the entire creation is Dharma. That is how Vedanta describes Dharma. So Dharma accounts for one's maturity. The more a person is matured, the more dharmic he or slowly becomes. Dharma begins order and stability, and without Dharma, artha and kama becomes more or less self-destructive. So Dharma occupies the first place, and because of the importance we place on Dharma, the order of the Purusharthas now slowly gets tweaked. Dharma comes first, Dharma, Artha and Kama comes. And the last one is a Moksha, which is the fourth one called the freedom from bondage. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. When we are born, the only thing that is certain for us is death. Hindus believe that life and death are a continuous process. Belief in the rebirth, hence infinite lives, which is a hallmark of Hinduism, makes achievement meaningless and puts the focus, the compassion, understanding, the wisdom and knowledge on. And that's how we strive towards Atmajnana. So we are here based on our past karmas or past actions, and that is what we call as karma. So the whole process of transformation, the Vedanta says, is in our own hands. The whole process of transformation is in our own hands. It is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. That is why it says praptasya praptihi in Tattva Bodham. That basically means that you're discovering what you already possess using self-knowledge and self-discipline. So the last Purushartha is Moksha. So the question is, how do we attain Moksha? And Amrita Bindu Upanishad comes up with a very beautiful description. Mana eva manishyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. Our mind is nothing but a collection of thoughts. Our mind is nothing but a collection of thoughts. Mind is a cause of bondage, and mind is a cause of liberation. As you think, so you become. So everything begins with our thoughts. We sow a thought and reap an action. If you repeat an action, it becomes a habit. The sum total of our habits defines our character, and our character in turn determines our destiny. That basically means that whatever we are experiencing now in our lives is a result of thoughts that we chose to cultivate. What a beautiful sentence. Everything begins with thoughts. We sow a thought and reap an action. If you repeat an action, it becomes an habit. The sum total of our habits defines our character, and our character in turn determines our destiny. And this leads us to the other statement of vasanas, which we will be covering next week with quite a lot of other materials on a little bit of intermediate Vedanta as well. So at an offset, when we look at all the stuff which we discussed today, the Upanishadic and the Vedantic teachings which we discuss here are all immortal works that are such an invaluable gift to humanity. These teachings are as relevant today as they have ever been. They are the means to transport us, the humankind, from misery to happiness, from ignorance to knowledge, from the cycles of birth and deaths to nirvana. So Vedic sages were highly trained, they were exceptionally knowledgeable, and they were exceedingly disciplined. These sages did not want wealth. They did not want wealth, they did not want power, they did not even seek fame in return. So unconcerned were they about such things that did not even attach their names to the priceless information that was revealed to us. And they refused to take credit for the years of intense thought experiments. They maintained all this information in Vedas as an open source of information. They did not set up any intellectual property clauses, no copyrights, no exclusive authorships, no patents, no trademarks, and no secrets. Look what's happening all around us. We make a small tweak here and there and we claim it's ours. We put a trademark, we put a patent, and we say it's my IP right. So what these Vedic sages did hope to achieve by sharing the secrets they had discovered was a simple thing. It was to inspire people like us to seek the truth for ourselves. What they dearly wanted was to help their fellow humans realize that our life could be joy if it was lived in the right way, and the human spirit was limitless, was full of untapped power and potential. Without these magnanimous Vedic sages and the wonderful Guru Sishya Parampara and the Sampradaya, we would not have been able to make a head or tail out of this priceless wisdom. When you look from that aspect, when you look at from that perspective, one realizes how small we all are. We are just a tiny speck in this universe, and the entire humanity must bow their head and be eternally grateful to these Vedic sages. So let us conclude today with a very famous Vedic prayer for universal peace, or the Shanti mantra. Om swasti prajabhayam paripalayantam nyayena margena mahimahisha go brahmanebhyam shubhamastu nistyam loka samasta sukhino bhavantu loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. The meaning goes something like that. May all people be happy and contented. May all people be happy and contented. May the rulers reign righteously. May the rulers reign righteously. Let all animals and men of wisdom be taken care of with utmost love and compassion. May everyone be filled with auspiciousness. May everyone be filled with auspiciousness. Thanks for spending a wonderful Friday evening with me. The time now is 9:57, and I took approximately 55 minutes as I promised. So I'm concluding my first series of talk here. The second series of talk will happen next Friday, same time, and there we will try to look at the essence of other Vedantic words that often feature in Bhagavad Gita, with the hope and understanding that I'm able to brush up some of your knowledge, and I can brush up my own as well. Plus share something with you and hear your feedbacks. And here I conclude. I'm open for questions, suggestions, or any constructive criticisms you may have. Om Tat Sat. Hari Om.
Wonderful, marvelous, fantastic. Shaji, I don't have words. Thank you. Thank you.